I'm never drinking again. Put a hurting on my credit card. I must have bought tequila shots for everybody at the bar. Well, I finally learned my lesson, seen the neon light on Sunday morning, saved no more Saturday nights. I made it this time, at least until next weekend. I swear I'm never drinking again.
Joe Mamas and Joe Daddies. Today on Windy City Joe's, we have a very special guest. He's performing at Joe's on Weed Street on March 6th.
Yep.
Perfect. And it's a live show, which I'm very pumped about. But Ken Garr, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm actually shooting my comedy special at Joe's on Weed on March 6th. So it's going to be a big to-do, man. We're really excited.
That's awesome. To get things started, Jackson.
Oh, I already forgot what we're doing. We are also funny.
Oh,
yeah. This bad boy cost us a pretty penny.
we just wanted to show you that, like, you know, you're probably used to being the funny guy in the room. We just wanted to show you that we're certified hilarious from the Second City, which we know that you went to as well.
I'm with my peers. I love it. I love my fellow Second City alumni.
What did you have, like, an improv group?
No, I mean, we just I did the conservatory. And then I actually graduated from Second City. They give you a t-shirt and a pizza party. And then I never did improv ever again.
So how did you do stand up first or improv first?
No, I did improv first. So I did all of the Second City, beginner classes. And then I auditioned to get into the conservatory. I didn't get in the first time because I don't know why, but I was on crutches at the time. I actually auditioned on crutches. And then the second time I got in, and then I went through the whole conservatory program. But at the same time, I started doing stand-up with the folks from the Tony and Tina's wedding that was upstairs from those guys. And I ran into them one day and they said, hey, we're going to go to this rugby bar across the street and do some stand-up. And I was like, hey, I'll try stand-up. I was just in a really creative mode at the time. And I was like, hey, I'll try stand-up. A friend of mine was doing stand-up and I went and saw her. And I was just like, hey, maybe I can do this too. And the first time I did it, I was hooked. I kind of like lost interest in improv right away, and just started writing jokes and started doing stand-up. So it's...
Damn. So you were clearly funny from, like, the first time you were on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I just liked that. And that was actually the problem that I had in improv, was that I just wanted to be funny. And that's not necessarily always the role in improv, right? Sometimes you're the supporting guy. Sometimes you're just, the uncle that sits there quietly, and so I just wanted to be funny and get to the punchline, and, stand-up gave me the freedom to do that. But I tell every aspiring stand-up comedian to take improv classes, because I certainly still use all of the tools that I learned at Second City today, even in my stand-up, whether it's just crowd work or dealing with a heckler or just even kind of writing on stage and thinking on the fly. You're going to use everything you can. Take stand-up classes, take improv classes, do whatever it takes to, get the tool set that you guys need to be the best you can be.
Well, and that's what I've always heard. Like when I was talking to a couple of the people that were teaching a stand-up at the time, and also improv, but they always said that it's much easier to go from improv to stand-up than it is to go from stand-up to improv, because you're, focused on the punchline in stand-up. You're like, okay, it's the build-up, and getting to that punchline, versus like, you're like, oh shit, okay, we hit the punchline, but now we have to build the rest of the scene in improv. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's exactly it. And for me, having done improv first and having done a little bit of theater in high school, like just getting the lights on my face, just getting in front of an audience, like there seemed to be less pressure in improv than there is in stand-up, right? So like for stand-up, it's just you and the audience. That's it. You have no one, you have no one to blame. It's not, and you can be like, oh, this other partner was really dragging me down. Like it's just you and your jokes. So yeah. with improv, it's like you've got somebody that can actually help you out, support you, and lift you up. Maybe if you're having an off night or you're just having an off,
sketch, but with improv, it's just you versus them. So yeah, I definitely subscribe to the notion that you should take improv classes if you're going to be a stand-up, because it helps you just get used to the stage. It helps you start getting your creative juices flowing and start writing jokes.
Yeah. What so you said you did theater in like high school. Like what was your first role or being on a stage?
Yeah, I never in a million years thought I would do drama. I went to an all boys Catholic high school. I went to St. Rita High School on the South Side. And, I didn't think that I would be interested in doing something like that. I thought I wanted to be a cool kid, and I just thought only dorks did theater. But, it turned out that there were girls involved, and I wanted to meet girls. And they all came from the all girls school, and they're like, yeah, come meet some girls. I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I wish there was like this love of theater that drove me, but it was just teenage hormones basically.
No, that was my reasoning too.
Right. Yeah. And so I got involved in that. And then I went over to Mother Macaulay and I did some one act plays where I really got to be funny and use my sense of humor. And that's like just hearing that first laugh, and I was always a class clown. So I always loved making people laugh. But for me, like getting that first audience to laugh was really amazing. There's no better feeling in the world. And so I was hooked. I knew I was going to be involved in the arts somehow, and whether it was improv or stand up. But the same thing was like it like all the minute you do it, you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, And I think the same thing applies toward music or whatever you're going to do. Every time I meet an engineer, I'm like, how do you guys do that? And I'm like, this is just what I love doing. So,
so you if correct me if I'm wrong, but you were in corporate sales for like 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually at some point there was a day came along and you're just like, all right, like fuck this shit, I'm out. Like I'm doing stand-up comedy. Can you kind of take us back to that day where you were like, all right, I'm gonna do this legitimately, this career? Because I'm sure it was probably a little scary, but also like about time. Like I can do this.
Yeah. I know the exact moment. To this day. I was a managing director at NASDAQ. So I had this like high profile finance job in the stock market. And my job was to consult with the CEOs and CFOs of publicly listed companies. And so I was actually in a conference room with the CFO of Buffalo Wild Wings. Ooh. And I was just like negotiating this deal. And I just couldn't stop thinking about doing an open mic in February in Minneapolis when it was 2 degrees out. And I just thought, I'm like, you know what, if you're thinking about it this much, and at this point I had been doing stand-up for about 10 years, but just kind of on the weekends, and I never really kind of took that big leap. But I decided then and there that I had to try this. And I tell everybody, like, you can do anything for a year. No one's going to slap you, no one's going to tell you, no, you can't come back to the workforce, having taken a break for a year. And even if I came back to the workforce, it was going to be a really cool story. Right. So for me, it was just like, I'm going to do this for 1 year. And then, the year flew by, and next thing you know, it's been, 8 years and I've never looked back. So for me, it was just this realization that like, I don't want to work in a cubicle. I don't want to, be in, and I was at the top of my game. Like I had this like really high profile. I was making tons of money and I was miserable. I just didn't, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And so the minute that I made that decision, there was like this overwhelming sense of freedom to be able to do what I wanted to do. And it was awesome. It was an awesome feeling.
That's super cool too, because being at that level, I'm sure you had people being like, what are you doing? Like, this is not fucking a good idea, dude. Like, dude, not good at all.
I traded in a Lexus SUV for a Honda Civic, and like all the car dealers like were kind of like hanging around the office, and finally one of them had the courage to go, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm following my dreams, boys. I'm going out to California."
That's hilarious. Did you? All right. So, okay. After that day.
Yeah.
Well, how was the open mic at Indy? How'd it go?
The open mic. In Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it was even like.
Yeah. And here's what's funny is that, like, you go to an open mic. Look, we get really cocky in Chicago, right? Like, we've got a great comedy scene. Some of the best comedians in the world have come out of Chicago. And so you go to like Minneapolis, you're like, these guys are going to be worshiping me in about 5 minutes. And then you see like everybody crushing and just having great sets. And I'm like, oh, these guys are really good as well, And so it humbled me very quickly to be like, oh, there's great comedians all over the country. And so I definitely tried to bring my A game that night, but it was also like, it was also this feeling of like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I just remember just being excited and not scared at all because, it's like I explained to my parents. My parents are very blue collar. My father was a firefighter in Chicago for 35 years. My mom was a homemaker, and, obviously they were nervous because I was taking this quote unquote big chance. But, I said, look, when my dad retired from the fire department, he said, I can't believe they paid me to do this. And I knew that if I spent, 30 or 40 years in corporate sales, that I wasn't going to feel like that. I wasn't going to walk away going like, that was awesome, And for some people it is, but for me, it wasn't going to be, I just like, I'd rather be broke slinging jokes than, rich and miserable. So.
No, that's kind of insane because I remember this moment in high school. My dad was like, if you do what you love every day, like you don't have to work for a living.
Yeah.
And so like ever since then, I've just been like, oh shit, like what is that? And how do I get there? And I, just like you, I was like, there's no way I can be in an office. There's no way I can probably dress in a suit and tie every day. There's no way I can go to school for like a super long extended of time because school is ass. I'm sorry to anybody that enjoys it. I mean, I don't, but yeah,
Sure.
like it's just, I'm guessing you had that like gut feeling though that like I'm gonna go a different route in life than like probably most people.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I thought that like my life was kind of like predetermined, right? Like, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to go get a job, I'm going to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
I'm going to get a wife, I'm going to get a house, and I had all of those things, like all of it. And then I found this like little thing that started off as a hobby, and I just became more and more in love with it. And so, like, for me, I kind of describe it as a calling more than anything. Like, this is what I need to be doing. My dog has decided she's going to drink all of the water in the house in this moment.
What's your dog's name?
Shrimp.
Shrimp?
Yeah. She's an 80-pound boxer bulldog, and she drinks water once a day, and it's the whole bowl. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, and there's nothing more motivating than doing the thing that you love, So for me, it was like, as soon as I quit, this career, it was like I got to work quickly. I sold my house. I, sold all of my possessions basically. And I packed up my car and I moved to Los Angeles. And, I dedicated 7 nights a week to doing stand up, and I didn't stop until, I made a career for myself. So.
That's super awesome. Who in the comedy field right now like is someone that you kind of just look up to and admire from like where they started and like their career right now?
Man, I have such respect for anybody that can do this and make a living. It's because it's so hard. It's so hard to
Yeah.
like be able to do this thing that you love and make a living at it. I love. I mean, obviously, I love guys like Bill Burr and people like Burt Kreischer and uh, Whitney Cummings. I mean, there's just so many there's so many great people out there that are killing it. So for me, it's just like, are you paying your bills? Do you have some gigs on the books? Like, you're doing it. Congratulations. And one of the things I was talking about to another comedian recently, actually last night, was just like, I see so many comedians that are like, I've got to be at this level. I need this many followers. I gotta be headlining. I gotta be this. I gotta be that. And then they're like, within 5 years, they're not doing stand up because they have such resentment and anger toward the craft. And for me, it was just like, man, like, every day that I'm doing stand up is another day I'm not in a cubicle doing a job that I hate. So for me, I'm like grateful, and I'm excited about the ability to do the thing that I love to do day in and day out. But I mean, I know it's kind of a vague answer to your question, but you look at any of the guys that are killing it right now, and you're just like, but they all had the same story. They just started writing down jokes. They started hitting open mics, and some people are doing better than others, and some people move on.
Damn, that's a good, because it is true about, I don't know, like, I've been that person where, like, you say, like, I'm going to do this, so I really want to do this. And then maybe you find out, like, it's just not their thing, or like you do just get so frustrated with it. You forget why you initially came or started doing it. So it's like, you got to reset your mind. It's just interesting thinking about that from a comedian's perspective, because
there's a big difference between having goals, right? So I have goals and I want to achieve these goals.
Right.
But I don't, and one of the things is I love doing stand-up and I love performing, and I don't want to get in a position where I hate it because I'm not getting these things that I want. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of comedians lose sight of like what's important, which is just getting on stage and doing the thing versus like, well, I want the Tonight Show and those are all great things to aspire for. But, it's like I have 5 friends that are on Saturday Night Live right now, and I'm excited for each and every one of them. And would I love the opportunity to be on Saturday Night Live? Absolutely. But I'm also very happy with the career that I have. And I'm not going to be like resentful because my friends are doing well. And, I have a different career path than they do.
How often do you come back to the city of Chicago?
My whole family lives there, and I'm the only one that left. I'm, when you're from the South Side, it's like, you stay here on the South Side, you get maybe a cottage in Wisconsin or Michigan, and that's it. So
right.
So I'm the big weirdo that left, and it's like, why would you leave? We got beef sandwiches here, but I come back pretty often. My mom and dad they live right in Palos Heights. They live in the suburbs, they've been retired, and so I come back and visit, Easter, Christmas, probably a couple times a year. I also did a lot of stand up in Chicago. So I still do, Zanies, the Improv, Laugh Factory. And so when I decided to shoot my special, it's like, it only made sense to come back to Chicago, kind of where it all started from.
Yeah, that's awesome of you to do. And like, that is cool to do in the hometown. Who's easier to make fun of, Californians or Chicagoans?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think Chicagoans are easier to make fun of only because that's in my DNA, right? Okay. So like born and raised, so like I can talk, I can use special Chicago references, like French Room and beef sandwich and Portillo's and Giordano's. I can bring the accent back, So right. For me, and honestly, like Chicagoans have a much better sense of humor than people in Los Angeles, and I'll tell you why. Because these guys are so used to seeing famous people every day, so so it's like I might be on the same show with a Bill Burr and or a Louis C.K. and Theo Vaughn and all these guys that are like huge famous people. And, in LA, it's like, oh, they're just, used to seeing these guys perform every single day. So in Chicago, it's a little bit different. And these are just my people, like I said, I was born and raised there, and I speak the language and know who you guys are.
Do you stand strong for deep dish pizza out there in LA?
Nah, man, and you guys know, you're from Chicago. Like, it's not about deep, right? We have our thin crust is just as good.
Okay. Yes.
So like everyone has this idea that like Chicago is the most violent place in the world. Like, not really. Just like 4 square blocks are real bad. You don't want to go to, right? And then you have this idea that like we're the deep dish capital of the world, and we've got great deep dish pizza. But like, I'll take a thin crust Palermo's or thin crust Giordano's any day. I'm not going to turn it down. Now, is it, New York versus Chicago pizza? Chicago all day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
And even LA, it's like the worst day of my life was I downloaded the Domino's Pizza app. I wanted to die. I was just like, are you really doing this?
Well, fill out like a login form. Son of a bitch.
You're like, oh, and now I have like, they send me emails. And I just constantly reminded I have the app. I was talking to someone in Chicago the other day, and they were like, I'm going to go home and get Domino's. And I was like, we live in Chicago.
Are you okay? Do we need to talk?
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Like, she's like, but I'm going to be drunk. I'm like, there's so many better drunk pizza places in Chicago still than Domino's. Like in Domino's, you're gonna eat it and you're gonna wake up and you're still not gonna be happy. So it was just
100%. They opened a Gino's East out here finally.
And I love Gino's East.
Yeah, and we order it every once in a while, but yeah, good pizza is definitely hard to come by here in Los Angeles. That's for sure.
If you don't mind, what is that like statue behind you?
So yeah, my wife is an artist, and so what she does is she takes these mannequins and she paints them, and then she puts like this weird like midsummer headdress on them.
That's awesome. I was laughing because we're actually moving we're moving a studio in a month, and I literally threw out a mannequin today that we had, and I could have just given it to your wife and she could have made freaking money off of it and been awesome.
Yeah, I did a Zoom once and Alyssa Milano was on it from like Who's the Boss and all those, and she's like, what is that? Like, it's the thing that frightens me when I get up to use the bathroom every night. So yeah.
How long has it been there?
Oh, it's been there 2 years. I mean, it's about a year and a half. Yeah.
You never get used to it. You're just like, oh shit, there's this fucking person there.
No, man, you guys have no idea. I could give you a tour, but like directly in my line of vision from our bedroom into the second bedroom, we have got a glass case that our chameleon lives in, and it's basically a standing glass case that has a skeleton inside of it, and then plants coming out of the skeleton. Yeah, I married a goth. And I tease her that she's retired goth, but she still has like, these goth attributes. So people come into our house and they're just like, this is the scariest place in the world.
How often do you have to get, do you tell your wife? Cause I'm sure it happens all the time. Like, I'm sure you write jokes either about the relationship or like maybe something she does or something you do that drives her nuts. How often do you like have to get consent and be like, honey, is this okay? I do it on stage, or do you just go for it?
I think if it's something super personal between us, I'll run it by her. Right. So like, I don't ever want to be in a position where she hears a joke and she's either embarrassed or uncomfortable with the material. Because I want to stay married. Right. So,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So, but I would say 90 to 95% of the material that I do about us, she's completely comfortable with. Because it's things that are true, that have happened in our relationship and our marriage. So mostly I just talk about how hot she is. So like how she's going to just wake up one day and be like, what? No, we're good.
Yeah. You're going to want to keep that going, because otherwise it's another app you have to download.
I know.
You can't just do that shit in person anymore.
I had those apps too, and you know what? Everyone lies. They're all liars. Every girl thinks that they have like this cool profile. I'm like, you're all the same. I saw one. It said, I'm just looking for a guy with a great sense of humor, and I'm like, I'm literally one of the funniest people in the world. Right? Like I'm a professional comedian. I got 7 billion people on the planet. There's only like 300 or 400 really that can do what we do. And I'm like, you're not looking for a guy with a great sense of humor. All right, you're looking for a guy with abs. I don't have that. I have one ab. That's it. I have a single ab, thanks to deep dish pizza.
How do you respond to people? Because I'm sure you meet people and what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a comedian. They say, oh, great, tell me a joke. Like, do you either want to punch them in the face or throw them in front of traffic?
Yeah, that's a rough one, man. For the majority of people are really interested and fascinated when you tell them that you're a professional comedian. So I'd say the majority of people are like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" Like, and then the follow up is like, "Do you make money doing that?" It's like, no, I live in my car. No, and then some people will be like, "Oh, tell me a joke." The thing that really gets under my skin is like when they're like, careful what you say around this guy. He's going to put in his act.
Oh.
Right? And then I remember I had like when I still had my day job, my coworkers found out, and I tried to keep it from them as long as possible. And then they found out, and they're like, "So do you talk about us in your act?" I'm like, "No, you're boring. I hate it here. I'm never going to talk about this dumb office."
That makes sense. It's like I fucking hate you, and I hate everybody here. Like you're the last thing I want to think about.
I'm never ever going to talk about you. You're not special. Stop it.
What's like maybe just like a certain area in life in general that you've found yourself picking like a good amount of jokes from?
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense. I would say that most of my jokes are biographical, right? So like I come from 3 generations of firefighters, and I'm the only one in my family that isn't a firefighter, right? So like that's just low hanging fruit.
Right.
I've been divorced. I've dated as a divorced man. I've gotten remarried. In fact, when my wife and I got married 18 months ago, I leaned over to her and I was just like, I just lost half of my act. And so, this is costing me a fortune. But yeah, I think that, I pull from like my own life. And I know that kind of sounds cliche, but it's true. I don't really get political. It's not that I don't have my own stances on things, but I'm just not smart enough to make an argument, to be honest with you, but I just talk about what I know. I've been sober for 4.5 years. I don't drink or do drugs anymore. I talk a lot about that. Yeah. And so for like, especially coming from Chicago, it's just like, how did this miracle happen?
Well, it's like babies come out of the womb here and they do a shot of Malort. It's like, all right.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, and now they give them a blunt. So
yeah, that's
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the funny thing, man. Like California was like the birthplace of the weed movement, and so people are out of there. They're just sitting at red lights forever, not moving. Just nobody goes out anymore. They just watch Netflix, just high.
It's the same Adam Sandler movie, just on repeat.
On repeat. Are you still watching Netflix? Yeah, we're still watching, man. Yeah. 7-Eleven. There's like 10 people in line at 7-Eleven just getting munchies.
Sounds about right. What do you got?
What is it like going from Chicago and doing, the open mic scene here versus going out there? Or did you have like a solid gig lined up that you were like, all right, I'm going to start doing regular stuff out in LA?
No, man, I moved out here. I didn't know anybody. I knew one person, and that was it. And I literally started over. And when I left Chicago, I was kind of headlining, clubs and the very first show I did in Los Angeles, I had to follow Damon Wayans. And, it was like a Tuesday night and he crushed, of course, because he's so funny. And then the host of the show had been on like the Tonight Show twice. And I remember calling my mom like the next day and she's like, do you feel like a big fish in a small pond, or what, how that expression goes? You feel like a small, I go, I am plankton in the ocean right now. Like I am way in over my head. But the thing I told myself as I was driving out to Los Angeles was just like, look, nobody knows who you are. Like, it's like, you ain't shit. You don't know shit, that kind of thing. And so I just told myself to not have a chip on my shoulder, and so I literally started at open mics here, and you slowly kind of work your way up. You go from open mics to bar shows, and then from bar shows, you get a couple of like, club shows, and then all of a sudden you get kind of passed at some of the clubs and people get to know you, but it can take a long time. There's no, get off the train and all of a sudden you become a star. Those stories are very few and far between, and for me, my path was like literally working hard every single day, starting at open mics, ending up at the Comedy Store, just hanging out and getting to know people. And it took a long time. And I see a lot of people that move out here and, they don't last because, they were the big fish where they came from and they just expect all these doors to open for them. And it's just not the reality. The reality is there's a lot of competition. There's very limited stage time, and you just have to come out here and crush. And but that's the challenge that I really liked. One of the reasons I moved out here is because I wanted to see if I could follow the best, and hold my own. And turns out I can't. All right, not. Turns out I'm not great. No, I'm kidding.
You're like, we're actually booking flights right now. No.
Yeah. Can I be a host on your podcast, please? I'm moving back.
Yeah, come on.
Gar was taken back to the city of Chicago.
Right?
Yeah, I would love to be the podcast that brought him back. I saw that in I mean, I know the videos were uploaded in 2020, but they were, I don't know when they were filmed, but when you did Laugh Factory in Chicago, and it was you did a lot of jokes about like staying with your parents while you were back in Chicago, and I thought like that stuff was hilarious because that's what
you do.
Because that's what I did a lot of the time during the pandemic, like during lockdown. Because I was like, I'm not just gonna sit alone in my apartment. So I like was like, all right, I'll go bother them some more. You know, I had just moved out, and I was like, I'm back, and like, and then I was like watching your stuff, and I was like, dude, this is so relatable and just hilarious, especially to my situation. But like, how much of it was like, just like you were like, this is verbatim what's happening. I'm just taking notes as it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's all 100% true. I mean, some stuff gets a little, you embellish a little bit on some things, but for the most part, my parents are kind of like the parents from Seinfeld. Like when I talk to them, like they put me on speaker and they both have their ears up. Or if I FaceTime them, they're still trying to hear, so I just see the ear hair. As I'm like, point it like this. And I'm like, what? But I adore my parents. They've been married for 57 years.
Wow, good
they
for
raised, they raised 4 of us. They're like, I'm the youngest, so they still treat me like I'm a 9-year-old. And and I stay with them. Like my dad will like wake me up in the morning still, and he's like, hey, you sleeping in? What are you doing? I go, I work nights, bro. Like I work at night,
It's
like,
4:30, Dad.
Yeah, I went to bed at or that's the other thing. Like I'll ask him for a ride to the airport. I'm like, all right, my flight leaves at 8. When I get there around 7:15, like 5:30, he's like, let's go. Let's get out the door. We're good, man. Yeah. So it's kind of weird, when you just like, you go from like being a kid that lives there and depends on your parents to being a guest in their house, but you never quite make it to that guest, title,
That's so true. That's so true. I like my parents now. They like, we don't even deserve a mattress anymore. It's just an air mattress. They're just like,
that's funny.
Am I even part of the family? Like, what is this?
Your old bedroom just has an ironing board in it now.
Right. Well, like
that's the ironing room.
Yeah. I think, I mean, is it safe to say that like all of our parents are crazy, like to our own,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Because mine are crazy.
Yeah, but I feel like at some point you just look at the people that made you and you're like, wow.
Oh, like I understand you're crazy because you raised me.
Yeah, and I know I'm
Were you a devil child? I was a devil child.
I was not. No, I mean,
No?
I was like, I was like, I was pretty, I don't know. I was a class clown, but my parents also like got it. Like I was a class clown. I wasn't the type of class clown where I was being disrespectful. I was just trying to get laughs, And so anytime my teachers called home or the principal called home, it wasn't really like, they weren't really like coming down on me or grounding me or whatever, because they knew that like, that's just how I was. And they really embraced my personality. Now for them, it was a little bit scary, given their kind of blue collar roots, for me to not have like a pension and a plan, and own a home and all that stuff. So for them, this is all new. But yeah, I would say the first time I got to perform in Las Vegas on the Strip, and they saw my name and lights on the marquee, and they were like, oh, this is real. Like this is like they stopped calling it my little sketch, and like, and then it became like my son, the comedian, and it was great, man. And now they're cool. They come to a lot of shows. I always point them out when they're in the audience and have fun with them. And, it's cool. Like that they get to kind of enjoy this career that I picked as well, and they're really supportive.
That's super cool. What I know you said that he didn't get really into trouble, but you were a class clown. What were like some of the? I'm guessing you had to have been punished a couple of times.
Sure.
And, like what were those punishments?
Yeah, mostly it was kick me out. They kicked me out of the room. Like I could tell you, like there were like 413 bricks in the hallway of my like grammar school, right? So like I just would sit outside and just count bricks, until they let me back in. And sometimes they didn't let me back in until the bell rang. And here's the thing. Here's what's funny about that is like some teachers like really hated the distraction, and other teachers were like cool with it. They would laugh, they would let me get it out, and then they would just move on with their lesson plan. And those are the teachers that I love to this day, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't trying to be a jerk, and I wasn't trying to be disruptive. I was just really being myself and just trying to get a laugh. And so for me, like those teachers that kind of like got me and understood, and I've gone back, to those teachers, and they're like, I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like you were so funny when you were a kid, and we're happy that you are the way you are. And all the teachers that didn't like me, they all died horrible deaths.
Go to their grave and spit on it. Yeah.
Tired, resentful, angry, bitter people.
Believe in me now, bitch. Yeah.
Well, I love that, because I feel like there were only like probably a handful that would ever be like, oh, that's like what you like want to do, is like make people laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they, like a lot of them were like disrespectful, get out of the room. Or like one time we took this stupid picture, it doesn't even matter, but like we're like on a desk and we were like in like a grind line, like what you would like, see at like a prom or some shit. And it was literally the fact I was Cupid in the musical. So, which that part got cut, that little bit, because it was an added bit, and I had to wear a diaper, and I was like shirtless, and like I'm in this picture.
You look like Captain Underpants, but no cape.
Right.
Okay.
And then, but like angel wings. And so it's like just layers on layers of funny. And then I'm on the desk, but I'm in the back, and it looks like I'm in tidy whities from the angle of the picture. So it just looks worse. It looks like Breaking Bad, but not Breaking Bad. And then it's also a musical, but we posted it as a promo for the musical. Like, come see the show. Yeah. We're all in it. And like one of us now is a doctor. Yeah. One of us is in broadcasting, and one of us is sitting here on a podcast with you. And I remember they went in and they were like, this could ruin so many job opportunities. They took us individually into the office, Friday schools or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, this could ruin so many. Like, what do you want to do? The one girl was like, I'm going to be a doctor. And they're like, see, this could ruin a lot of jobs. And like the other guy was like, I want like a broadcasting job on TV. This could ruin a lot of jobs. And they're like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know, like comedian, something like that. And they were like, this might be fine. like this will probably not hurt that bad. So
I dedicate. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. That was just the first time that I was like, oh shit, like maybe
now
like,
that picture's his LinkedIn profile picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was yesterday, by the way. He dressed like this for Valentine's Day.
Right.
But I remember the first time I performed at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, like I literally dedicated it to the teacher that was like a bully to me, because she used to say, where do you think these jokes are going to get you? And I was like, the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, bitch. Like, that's where it got me, and it was such like this feeling of redemption, and I mean, she terrorized me. She used to belittle me and call me names. And I was just like, this is like everything that I experienced, like led up to this moment. And I get to perform here at the MGM Grand. It's such it's a win. I won, it's such a cool feeling.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
Such like a drop the mic, like
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then they're like, that's very expensive. Please pick that back up.
Yeah, right. I know you can't actually drop a mic unless you're like, yeah.
Like, don't come back here, please.
Yeah, they're like, all right, he's done. He's never performing at MGM Grand again.
Get him out.
It's the fourth mic this week. Like,
like speaking of Vegas, I'm actually what month am I in? February?
Yeah, you're going in April.
St. Patrick's Day. I'm flying out to Vegas for my brother's bachelor party. I am in charge of it. I am the best man, thank God, because if it was anybody else, I'd be a little offended. Any advice? Never been to Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you guys staying? Do you know?
I do know, but not off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
so
one of the popular ones.
So look, man, I like keep it simple, right? Like I would say, like I took all of my friends from Chicago to Nine Fine Irishmen in New York, and they always have Irish bands. So if you're into that, like, and it's just like one of the stops. They also have like dueling pianos. So look, some guys want to go to strip clubs, like plan that
Yeah.
out. There's a lot of great like strip clubs that are out there. You know, I feel like guys are different now and some guys aren't into that, you know? And
Right.
so some people love going clubbing. You know, there's Hakkasan, there's tons of
Yeah.
great clubs. There's tons of great pool parties. But like, I think the most important thing when planning a bachelor party is understanding like the vibe of the group as a whole, right? So like you want to make sure that your brother has a great time, but like what would his ideal bachelor party? Because I've been to a lot of bachelor parties where it's like the best man, like this is the thing that he wants to do, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like do the thing that you think your brother's gonna have the best time, like Top Golf is connected to MGM. Like go to a day at Top Golf, you know, hit, you know, but again, I don't know you guys obviously, but like if you like write down some 2 or 3 things that you think your brother's gonna love, you know, if you end up going to the club and he's not a club guy, like he's gonna have the worst time ever.
Yeah.
But if he
We
go.
we do, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. We do have something. He's a big gambler, so it's like obviously he's going to the right place. But yeah, it's like the first weekend of the NCAA March Madness, so
Oh, awesome.
it's probably going to get a little crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it'll work itself out. It's Vegas.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Top Golf is great. They've got a lot of great TVs. They got outdoor televisions, and you can hit a bunch of golf balls and get drunk. So that's like you can't go wrong with that. And then any sports book, they have like recliners, and you can watch a lot of like the games that are right. Like you'll have like all of the games going on at the same time. So I mean, you're not going to do wrong for March Madness in Vegas.
Hopefully, I come back with some money. Probably not. We'll see.
No, there's a
Speaking
reason
of-
they built all those buildings.
Speaking of getting drunk,
Yeah.
you said that you've been sober for 10 years
4.5.
or
4.5.
4.5. Okay, you
You're
moved
close.
you moved out there 10 years ago, right? That was what
Yeah.
it was? Okay, I remember
Yeah.
you said 10 at some point during this interview. Okay, so you got sober. Were you ever at one point, like when you were like, all right, I'm gonna do this, like did you ever think of like you were like, oh, like alcohol's a crutch, or weed or whatever your jam was a crutch? Because I know that there's like a lot of comedians that I've come and cross paths with that are like,
Yeah.
like I don't know if I'm gonna be funny afterwards.
They only perform it with it.
Oh yeah, that was a big fear of mine. Now, I wasn't a big drinker before the show, like so I had like a lot of rules. Like the rule was I couldn't start drinking until the show started, right? And so I never drank before the show, but as soon as the show started, I can or I might have like one beer just to kind of take the edge off. And that was the big difference for me, is like, oh, I don't have my edge beer, to like calm the nerves. But that's just a myth. Once you've been sober for a while, like I actually found that my stand-up got way better because I am so much more present in the moment, and I can speak more clearly, and I can take an audience where I want it to go. Whereas if your senses are dulled a little bit, you don't have that presence or that wherewithal to understand like what's going on. So for me, if like I'm in the middle of an act and like maybe that like maybe a joke isn't hitting as much as I wanted it to, or maybe they're just like a little bit tight that time, now I can kind of pivot a little bit and maybe jump into crowd work, or I can like switch off and switch to family material, because I noticed that maybe they're a little bit of an older crowd, so I have that mind going like a little bit more crisp than if I even had like a couple of beers before a show where I'm just like, you know what, fuck this audience, they suck, whatever, just phone it in. So it's actually, but that's a very good question, and it's a very fair point, because I was really worried about just like not having that crutch to like kind of calm my nerves, but it ended up just being a myth, and I feel like I'm a better comic since I quit. And my career has definitely, and now I'm just speaking for me. I don't, whatever, but like for me, like quitting drinking like got me so much more time back, right? I'm not on the couch every Sunday nursing a hangover. And you get into your 40s, it's like a 2-day hangover, not just a 1-day hangover. Like there's a residual effect. And so for me, that's all time I can spend like either getting more shows, or writing more jokes or whatever. And now I've seen a lot of comedians. I've lost a lot of friends that are comics that, basically they're still trying to chase the high that they got on stage, and that's a very real thing. You feel like $1 million when you get off stage, if it goes well, right? If it goes well, you feel like It's the greatest feeling in the world. It's better than sex. It's better than everything. And you want to keep that feeling going. And so you'll get drunk, you'll get high, and you don't want to come down off of that. And unfortunately, there's certain people like myself, it's just like, you don't know how to handle it, and you wake up in, Tijuana and, your kidney's gone. So, but I got one good one, so we're good.
God. And your kidney's gone. Speaking of people who have kidneys, how did you run into Mikey O?
Mikey O, oh, what a great story. Yeah. My brother, before he became a paramedic, was a 911 dispatcher, which was one of Mikey O's old jobs. So Mikey O and my brother were both 911 dispatchers, and at the time, and he said, "You should meet my brother. He's a comedian." And he goes, "Okay, whatever. Have him come by Joe's on Weed Street." And you go into Joe's on Weed Street, and Mikey O like fills it, man. There's 300-400 people there. And, I was still pretty new in comedy. And so, it was very intimidating, but I had a good set, and Mikey just said, "Hey, keep giving me avails," which is, the term for available dates. And, and we grew in a friendship from there. And Mike's been one of my biggest supporters. He produced my first comedy album. And, he's just a great dude and a great producer. So when I decided I was going to do another special, he was the first person I called and was just like, "Yep, let's do it. Let's get it going." And he's been such a great resource and a great friend to do this project with.
So speaking of Mikey O and Thin Crust Pizza of Chicago, we had him on the podcast, and he actually said verbatim that Joe's on Weed Street is his favorite pizza. I don't even think he specified.
Most underrated in Chicago, he said.
Okay.
That's true.
Probably because he doesn't pay for it. He's a little cheap, so.
You're probably not wrong. Yeah.
He gets free pizza, so who's not going to love free pizza?
That's right. But let's talk about Joe's on Weed Street, March 6th. March 6th, you're filming your live special. We're going to be there. We are super excited about it. Kind of take us back to that decision of coming back to the city. I know we honed on it a little bit, but coming back to Joe's on Weed Street and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah. So, it's the journey, man. So like 8 years ago, I left the corporate world. Like I said, I sold everything I owned. I packed a couple suitcases. I moved to Los Angeles, and I dug a career out for myself. And I've been all over the world. I've been to Iraq. I've been to Kuwait. I'm going to Dubai in August, which is the worst month ever to go to Dubai. But I've been able to travel and do this thing. And I'm just this kid that came from a Southside blue collar family, and I went for it. And so for me, it only makes sense to come back to Chicago, and really Joe's on Weed Street, where I really got my first start in comedy. And I have a special place in my heart for Joe's on Weed, man. They like some of the best shows I've ever done have been there. And, just the relationships, whether it's with the bartenders or, with Ed, the owner. And that's just that, like, Joe's on Weed for me encompasses what Chicago really is. You know what I'm saying? Like, one day it's a country bar, and the next day they got, two white crew, So it's just like, that's Chicago, you know what I'm saying? And then the next night they got salsa, and the next night they got, what's that guy? Julian Jumpin' Perez, right? So, that's what Chicago is. I remember that the Blackhawks came and brought the Stanley Cup there the first time they won it. And that's actually a terrible story, because I was supposed to do a Mikey O show, and my first wife, I've been divorced once, and she planned a trip to San Diego. And so I actually had to cancel the show. And so I'm in San Diego, and I'm looking on Facebook, and my buddy Alex Ortiz is holding the cup above his head on Joe's on Weed Street. And he's the comedian that filled in for me that night. So I would have been me. I would have been there with Patrick Kane and all the old crew, Duncan Keith, holding the cup over my head, and until I divorced her. I left her right away. And
thank God for that. Now we just need the Blackhawks to win again, and
need them to
bring the
win.
back to goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get tickets at MikeyOShow.com. You can also get them at Ken's Instagram, which I think is at Ken Garr was taken. The link in his bio. Ken, you're the man. We're looking forward to March 6th, and thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I look forward to meeting you guys in person.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm definitely ready to see a comedy show live in Chicago. I haven't seen one since pre-pandemic.
Right.
So you'll be my first.
It's going to be a great show. There's a lot of great comics that are opening.
Let's hope so. I've
awesome.
been sitting at home for a year waiting for a really good one.
Bring your parents. Bring them with.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you,
guys.
Ken.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.